everybody. Welcome to another episode of This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry, and with me in person this week, for the first time since before the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, it's Swan, the Bourbon Finder. Swan, welcome to the new studio space in the same house.
And there's cats.
There is a cat literally sitting next to you who could not previously join us for episode recordings, and
it's beautiful.
I'm pretty happy about it. It's nice to have some studio animals who are chill and, willing to allow you the creative space to make whatever it is that you please.
Absolutely. I'm all for it.
Swan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. It's been good. I had a whole day off. Told you my plans for today. Sleep, eat, sleep, eat. Just repeat that over and over again.
Yeah.
It's been nice.
Well, we just finished off the pregame chats, which you can find at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast at the $5 tier. And we had a couple of drinks over there just to get warmed up, as we normally do. But we do start every episode out with Flying Blind. This is the first official Flying Blind that you have been able to enjoy in person.
Oh, yes.
With me in a while. I just passed a bottle over to Swan for him to get prepared.
Getting a little Lucy Swanee.
That's got to be a shirt. So, of course, the idea behind Flying Blind is that the other person on the other end of the microphone does not know what it is. It's a way for us to kind of hop into the episode. Swan, tell me what you think about the nose on this one.
Ooh, it's sweet.
It is. It's very sweet.
It's very sweet. I'm a fan of it. There's not much ethanol at all. It's literally just sweetness.
There's like a jam note.
Yeah, it's
on the
not,
nose too.
It's not like a caramely, like sugary sweetness. It's more like almost like a marmalade. I don't know. I like this.
It is. I would say muted, but enjoyable.
Yeah,
like it's a pleasant invitation to sip on. So
absolutely.
And I would like for us to sip on it.
Ooh. So the sweetness kind of went away on the palate.
It starts getting more savory. Little bit of spice to it, but the thing that I really notice about this one is that it starts getting into these kind of baked bread notes.
Yeah.
It starts going from sweet to almost kind of not really decadent, but just I think baked is probably the best way to describe that.
I'm trying to compare it to something. I don't know. It starts to get real in that lane of like blackened barbecue and then switches immediately into like just yeast bread rolls.
Yeah. And I almost get, as I was kind of saying with the nose, like a jam, like a blackberry jam on toast as it kind of leads into the finish. There's not really a whole lot of heat or hug or anything on the finish, but it is enjoyable at the very least.
Absolutely.
One of the great things about recording in the same space at the same time too is when my wife brings us snacks.
That's a new thing. Dude, I enjoy it.
She's done it before.
Oh,
we've had like popcorn chicken and
it's been a while, man.
It has been. Yeah, that's the thing. You forget about these things until
mad?
But she brought some spring rolls out for us.
Yes.
What do you think? Tell me what you think about this. Give me your general assertions, proof, maybe mash bill, age, something like that.
I'm going to go that it's probably like 95-ish proof. It's kind of reminded me of a muted Jack Daniel's single barrel.
Interesting.
I don't know. It's strange. Like I'm getting some Brown Foreman or something on it, but it doesn't seem like it's Buffalo Trace or Turkey or Jim Beam necessarily. There's not like a nuttiness to it.
Yeah.
That I get with Beam.
Was that me?
Yeah.
That was bizarre.
I don't think it was me.
I don't know where that came from. That was very bizarre. So you said 95% proof, but not really sure distillery.
Distillery, yeah, I'm lost.
Well, I can understand why you would be confused. This is the Hotel Tango Reserve Bourbon, the weeded 6-year-old product.
Gotcha.
At 90 proof. It's really good, man.
It is good. I was actually wondering. I was like, is it a weeder? I'm not getting a ton of rye, but I'm also not getting rye. It's like, I don't know.
It's the mid-palate spice that kind of confuses you.
Yeah. Oh, wait, hold on. They do have something going on with, like, their barrels, because I can tell that, like, it has, like, a very signature spice that some of the other ones have had.
I love their website description. A well-balanced, dignified, weeded bourbon, refined sweetness. What Chesty would drink. Do you know who Chesty is?
Mm-mm.
He's a World War II hero, Chesty Puller.
Oh, okay.
Go look him up sometime. There's a great episode of Do Go On that they did about him too. I'll probably link it in the description below. The directions for it as well are served with heightened expectations.
It meets them. It meets them. And I think, honestly, it's probably a great segue into some of the stuff we're going to be talking about today, because their products are very appropriately priced where they're at. And this one, you look at it on their shelf and you're like, oh, man, it's almost double their regular bourbon. I don't know if I want to pay that. And even myself, I've been kind of apprehensive on picking it up. I don't know what I was thinking, man.
But and you have to look at the difference between the age between the two.
Yeah, and the fact that this is weeded as opposed to the rye bourbon.
Yeah. And it's also literally 3 times as old as the rye bourbon is.
It's impressive, man. I've yet to have something from theirs that is not impressive.
Yeah, I totally agree. And we were talking about it last week, I think, as well, that we would like to get into more of their products, whether it's their gin or even their vodka or, some more of their mixers even as well. I think that it would be a really cool thing to do where just kind of go through their entire vertical, not just of their whiskeys, but for the other products that they offer.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Lucy's able to drink again and you guys have the time,
yes,
make some cocktails with their stuff, man. If you follow their Instagram page, they are putting out some of the best looking cocktails on my Instagram feed.
You got the orange cello?
Orange cello, yeah.
Yeah, I tried it recently. I think I stopped over at your house to drop samples off or something, and you were like, you got to try this, and it's surprisingly good.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, they've got a cherry liqueur I'm also wanting to try, because I feel like that would blend into a lot of cocktails. It is dark, man. It is very, very dark stuff. I don't know. I can't.
I don't know is the right answer to that, I feel like.
I mean, none of these things I go to the liquor store looking for, and then I see it on the shelf, and I'm like, well, I did like their bourbon pretty much. Let's just bring it home with me. And I buy it, and I'm just like, when am I ever going to drink this? I don't really want this. Why did I buy this? And then I try it, and I'm like, no one needs to know this is my favorite thing.
Everybody got to know. Anyway, that was Flying Blind. Couple of things up top before we get into the main episode. First and foremost, I wanted to give a special thank you to one of my tips and bits last week, the Tell Me I'm Wrong podcast out of here in Lexington, Kentucky. Our buddies over there, Josh, Joe, and Ryan, gave us a shout out on social media for giving them a shout out on our podcast.
Do they want to drink some bourbon?
Yeah, we're talking about doing a big collaboration with them sometime, and maybe hopping on their show and being moderators for a debate. And I think it would be fun to have them show up on our pod as well, and share some drinks out here in the garage studio.
Absolutely,
with the cats. Berlioz wants to be a part of the show now. So anyway, if you guys have not checked them out, definitely go look up Tell Me I'm Wrong. You can also find them at social media at TMIW pod, all over the place. So thank you guys so much again for chatting with us. We got some really cool things in the works with them here soon. Also, if you have not done so yet, please consider leaving us a rating and a review on the iTunes podcast app. It helps us so much to get new listeners. We show up in the search function on the podcast app more regularly, especially if they're searching just for bourbon podcasts. And so it becomes a very active thing. You guys are very much a part of the listening and podcast experience that is offered here through Timbip. And we appreciate everybody who has done that already. And we have one later on to read out for you guys. And we'll do that for you if you do, in fact, leave us a review in that app or anywhere. I've found out recently that I can pull up reviews from anywhere across the world. So it doesn't have to just be in the US. I will find it. I'll find it. I'll find you.
We will find you.
Swan, also, since it's been a while since I've seen you, I have to ask you, what have you been drinking recently?
Oh, man, that's a tough question.
And have you had it in New Orleans?
No. Knob Creek, non-age stated.
Knob Creek, non-age stated.
Knob Creek, non-age stated.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I bought a pint for our episode because I wanted just an airplane bottle. Right. And I killed half a pint like 2 days ago. Just, the whole thing's gone. And I remembered that it's just so good. Like, I'm going to have to go out and find probably a 175 of it because I know that's just kind of what's sitting on the shelf right now for that. And buy it. I mean, I don't want it to leave. Not that the new stuff isn't phenomenal, but it's just want the variety.
Yeah, absolutely. I have actually been drinking through a few things this past week. One of them I just pulled down that we can try. I don't know if you've ever had this before.
No, can I have some of that?
Absolutely. I would love to have some with you. I tried that for the first time ever last night, and it's really not often that I have things that I've never had before, period. And it's the Isaac Bowman port finished, I believe.
Yeah, port barrel finished.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, this is actually sourced bourbon from Buffalo Trace.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, and I know that if I'm wrong, I'll get tweets, but this is the same mash bill and basically the same bourbon as Blanton's.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So this is basically a finished version of Blanton's.
Yeah, I remember seeing somebody go nuts over one of those. I think they had a barrel proof release that came out.
Ooh.
And it was like 140. It was up there.
Wow.
And it was like a hazmat version, and everyone went nuts for it.
I would very much like to try that sometime.
Same. Bourbon that hurts me, sign me up.
I am totally down for that. I opened a bottle as well of Elijah Craig Rye last night.
I had some of that as well.
With Papa Ritter. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did. I also opened over the weekend the Rare Breed Rye. With Dustin. Dustin and Misty came down to see us this weekend for the first time since we found out we were pregnant. I got in the mail, I haven't tried it yet, but a sample of the Old Fitz Bottled and Bond 9-year, which is the spring release from Heaven Hill.
Okay.
And so I'm probably going to be doing that on this week's live stream. If you guys want to check that out, you can do it at youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I do live streams every Thursday night. I've kind of failed to mention that too much on the show, but 8:30 p.m. American Eastern Standard Time. Or daylight. I don't know what we're in. Doesn't matter. Also wanted to follow up from last week. Bill, or Beer Lovers Wisconsin, also sent me a beer to drink, and I told him I would have it before we recorded this week's episode. And I did just that. It is a Central Waters Brewing Company stout. It is aged in bourbon barrels.
Any good?
It was fantastic. It was like almost like if root beer were also a beer.
Oh, okay.
But with more to it. It was really thick and viscous. I mean, it had an incredible palate to it. And I was blown away. This was apparently a 2016 release, so it's actually been aging in the barrel, or in the bottle, rather.
That's been hanging out for a minute.
So, and that is something that normally happens with stouts. They actually kind of go through a secondary aging process in the bottle before you try that. Anybody who drinks the Goose Island Bourbon County Stout.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They even did like
Tell
a
you that, too.
3-pack sampler, 17, 18, and 19 last year to kind of let you
got
see that aging process.
I've got one. It's not out here at the moment. I'll bring it out here eventually, but I do have one. I've also got all the like 2 of the limited releases from last year's too, like the one that was aged in larceny barrels, and there was another one too. I can't remember what it was,
We
but
put out some good stuff, man.
yeah, man, absolutely. Anyway, Swan, we have got a multitude of news items to get into before we get into our main topic, which is, I think we've been teasing it basically for the past couple of weeks, the trouble with valuing bourbon, or evaluating bourbon? Putting a value on whiskey.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah, figured it out. So we are catching up on a little bit of news because we did kind of take the week off last week as we were doing what we are now going to call, I would say, our week off from the news. And we're going to try to do that regularly, maybe every 4th episode, where we take a break, drink a little bit more, have a little bit more fun, get a little bit looser. But this week we are back to the news. And like I said, we're catching up a little bit. And in this case, we want to talk about a story that came out a couple of weeks ago from Michter's, who sold a barrel at auction for over $200,000 US, which
wild.
It's a record for a single barrel of bourbon. Holy crap.
Good for them, I guess. I mean, this is...
Good for them indeed. But that's just a lot of money. It goes towards COVID-19 relief, of course, the 50 Best for Recovery organization. And this was organized by William Reed, the parent company of the world's 50 best restaurants and the world's 50 best bars. This is insane. This is the first ever private barrel selection bottling of Michter's 10-year straight bourbon whiskey. And it's just I mean, honestly, this is a crazy amount of money for one single barrel.
It is. Are they going to be bottling at the same proof they normally do, or?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't even know if this is going to be released to the public.
I mean, if it's not, I mean, you could just throw a tap on the side of it at your house and pour out what you want, man.
I would totally do that. I got to say, though, first off, it's a lot of money for one barrel of bourbon, regardless of quality. But the fact that anybody was willing to put forth that money towards helping the folks in the culinary world during this time, absolutely incredible. I mean, well done to them for putting forth such a large amount of money.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I've even heard of people recently, while COVID has been going on and bars were completely closed. In some places, they're just taking however many drinks they take and tipping, even if it's at home, and then taking that to a bartender when it finally did open back up, which is great. And this is just like that on steroids.
Oh yeah. So there's going to be a couple different ways that the proceeds are going to be dispersed to those who are going to benefit from it. There's going to be direct grants of up to $5,000 to independent restaurants and bars, as well as donations to nonprofit organizations focused on the hospitality sector. By the way, I wanted to thank prnewswire.com for all of the information that was provided to us for this little section. Very cool. Always love hearing success stories like this, especially to benefit other people. The Bardstown Bourbon Company is reopening the Bottle and Bond Kitchen, with a brand new name. It has actually been reopened this past week. It is now called the Kitchen and Bar at Bardstown Bourbon Company. It's going to be limited, of course, to 50% capacity with socially distanced tables. And they seem like they're really excited about it. I'm personally very excited about it, of course. I have always felt like the Bardstown Bourbon Company offered some of the best food and drink options on the Bourbon Trail, period, and in Bardstown especially.
Yeah, and just reading through, they kind of list some of the items they're going to have on there. We just ate, so I can actually read these without getting hungry. Highlights include country hams with bourbon grains, Kentucky poutine with white cheddar cheese curds. I'm going to stop there.
Oh.
I mean, there's a whole listing of stuff. If you're driving your car right now, I don't want you to get hungry and pull over. Even though Wendy's sounds fantastic, just go ahead and pull in the drive-thru there. But still, I mean, it's hard to be mad. If they're going to change the name and still serve great, great food, I'm all for it.
I'm here for it too. Even if it's just like a classic burger, just a regular burger that you can get. Bardstown Bourbon Company is going to go above and beyond with it.
Oh, and they're going to put their spin on it, which is definitely going to be like the Kentucky stamp of approval.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to getting back out to Bardstown. Maybe here soon. Who's to say? I would like to, make the trip up. I haven't been to a distillery in many moons. Since before shutdown. I think it's not been since February, probably. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Now, this isn't necessarily bourbon news, but it is whiskey news, and I think it does kind of pertain to what we have been talking about recently with sustainability, especially in regards to Diageo. They are going to be launching a Johnny Walker in paper bottles next year.
Interesting.
I don't particularly know how I feel about this.
I don't know. I feel like if it's going towards something you're going to drink quickly, I wouldn't be too worried. But if you're going to have like a bottle that's going to be sitting in your cabinet for maybe 15 years, I'd be a little scared. Like my mom, she has a thing of Crown Royal that's probably been in there for like 6 or 7 years now because she goes in, she takes one cap full and puts it in an entire 2-liter of Sprite. And she's like, woo, I'm getting wild tonight. And that's like once every 4 or 5 months.
Sure.
So, I mean, I just hope it holds up.
That's what I think too. And I don't know the exact kind of construction of the bottle, if it's got like a plastic lining on the inside, which would kind of seem to defeat the purpose of combating plastic waste. But I can't imagine that the paper is going to hold up long enough to actually maintain the...
I wonder if there's like a proof point that they fall apart at. Like if they're cool up until a certain point.
I'm sure there is, but I think that, Johnny Walker is 80 proof. I could be wrong on that. Let's look it up.
It does say that Johnny Walker Scotch whiskey will be available in plastic-free bottles from early 2021. Plastic-free. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is 80 proof.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go dump some cash strength in there. I think that might shock it a little.
Yeah, I don't think that would hold up too well. But regardless, I think that there is something to be admired about this. I mean, if we've been talking about the sustainability efforts from Diageo that are about to hit the whiskey market, this is another big component of that. I think that they're, not just talking the talk, they're definitely walking the walk, regardless of whether it's an American whiskey brand or an international one. Mm-hmm. So there are some numbers to kind of back up what they are doing with this. This is coming from moneycontrol.com, by the way. They say in Europe, for example, 8.2 million tons of plastic were used to package food and drink in 2018. And Diageo uses less than 5% of plastic in its total packaging, but along with Unilever and PepsiCo, has set targets to reduce and recycle plastic in their packaging as part of the United States Sustainable Development Goals program by 2025. That's pretty incredible.
That is nice.
So they are actually working towards something that I feel like is definitely sustainable. They're going to be able to do something that has some kind of impact. And again, as we were saying, I think that this is going to be setting the standard for those who are looking to be industry leaders in sustainability and being more eco-friendly as well.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to that, seeing how that's going to change the game. Speaking of bottles, Yellowstone LE is getting a new bottle. I love this packaging.
I do too. It's even down to the bottle itself is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did an embossing on the Yellowstone there. They finally made it a little easier to see on the packaging that this is a yearly release.
Yes.
Because if you put 3 of the old ones side by side and had them all in the liquor store at the same time, you'd have to hand me the bottles before I could figure out what was different with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're looking at the proof or the price or something like that, I mean, that's going to be a good indication. But that really takes some, something a little bit more eagle-eyed. But in this case, it's sitting right on the neck of the bottle for you. So this product is going to be 7 years old, and it's going to be finished in Armagnac casks.
Yep.
At 101 proof. Super, super excited about this. Oh my gosh.
You gonna spring for it this year?
I might. If I can allocate the funds for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because as I've been saying, I would like to make sure that I can hold on to enough money for the Old Forester birthday bourbon.
Understandable.
Because I need it. I needs it.
Needs to stand in line for it and hope.
And that's gonna be a requirement this year. But I always am a fan of the limestone Yellowstone LEs. And there was that one Yellowstone single barrel from Liquor Barn that we loved so much. You got to try it, right?
I did, yeah. It was really unique, honestly. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, especially for a 4-year-old bourbon. Speaking about things that you didn't expect, how do you feel about, we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, this Isaac Bowman port finished?
I like it. It's kind of hard to distinguish that it's really port finished.
It is, but it does have a dry quality to it that would be, associated with a wine, a red wine, a dark wine.
I could see that. I get more of anything on the nose, just a kind of a sweeter note there, but it's not much on the palate. I do like it, though.
I do, too. And it's, when I opened this last night with my dad, I was saying it's been a long time since I've had anything that is finished. I mean, really, I just don't drink finished products all that much anymore. And when I do, it's kind of in passing, or I just don't really think about it too much. And this is one of those times where I was very much conscious of what I was drinking.
Yeah.
More aware of it. But I like it. And speaking of finished, I really want to try a bourbon finished in Armagnac casks.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, you even brought it up in our pregame chats.
Yeah.
Something you're interested in making yourself.
Oh, I would love to. I'd love to be a whiskey maker.
It'd be a nice job, I think.
It would be interesting and fun, for sure. So that kind of leads us into the releases of the week and those that we can expect here in the near future. This is coming from whiskeyadvocate.com, as it normally does. This Armagnac cask-finished bourbon from Yellowstone is going to be $100, 101 proof, 7 years old, coming out in September 2020, and is going to be limited to 15,000 bottles. Really, honestly, that's not that much.
No.
I mean, that seems to be down from what it has been in the past few years. That being said, I still see the past year or so every now and then out in the wild.
They do tend to hang around. Like
yeah,
at
they
one
do.
point last year, 2 years ago, when I was still working at the Kroger in Frankfurt, we had 2 releases of Yellowstone on the shelf.
2 at the same time,
2
really?
at the same time, yeah.
Wow.
So they do hang around for a little bit.
That is really interesting. This next one comes from Frey Ranch.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of them either. But it's a bottled and bond straight rye.
I'm interested in this one.
I am too.
It's actually from Nevada. So the thing that's getting me about this is so you've heard about deserts, the way that they tend to get super, super hot during the day.
It's a dry heat.
Super cold at night.
Yeah, it's a dry heat.
Yeah, I mean, just that variation, I think would be fun with this. And 4 years old at that, I've seen Texas whiskeys that at 2 years are darker than anything that we can get here in 12.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see what this is going to be like.
So this is going to be a Nevada-only release. 4 years old, of course, $60 a bottle, going to be available this month. I would like to try this. I very much would like to. I agree with you. I don't know what the age and climate would be like in a dry heat out in the west end of the U.S.
The description of the flavoring is not catering to me. Oak forward profile and flavors of dark fruit, tea leaves, and spice.
Yeah, that's not you at all.
It's not me at all, but still would love to try it.
I would like to know. I'm also curious what the mash bill on this one is.
Can I add something that we don't have on here?
Yeah, of course.
So, everyone's been clamoring for completing their Weller collection, and one of the ones that's been the hardest to find is CYPB.
Yes.
They're doing another release of it this year.
They
Shocker.
They are. The third release of CYPB.
Yes. So they're going to have another release of that. So you might see it in a raffle near you. I'm not going to say that you're going to be able to find it.
Do you think that CYPB has gotten to the point where people don't care as much?
I feel like that they have made it so exclusive, no one's interested in actually drinking it. Yeah. They're only interested in having it so that they can take a picture of it with all their other Weller line and put it on social media and go, aha, I got them all. And then Buffalo Trace 8 months later is just like, haha, no you don't. Like, I mean, that seems to be the running joke.
Thanks for the joke on us, Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
Thanks, it's hilarious. No, I think that I still find it desirable to a degree. I would still, of course, like to own a bottle.
I'm not saying I wouldn't buy it on site if I found it at retail. I'm just saying the likelihood of me going store to store for, a month straight saying, what's the chance you got this on the shelf somewhere? It's not high.
When was the last time you went into a store, though, and said, hey, you got any Weller?
I don't. I mean, now I just know when the truck kind of is supposed to be there, and I go in, and if it's not anywhere to be seen behind the counter or over the counter, I just don't even ask anymore.
It's been a long time since I've been like, man, you got any Weller in the back?
Yeah.
Like, just what's the point anymore? There is none.
Yeah.
I feel like. So, I don't know. I would like to try these past 3 releases as a vertical.
That would be nice.
I would be curious if there's been any discernible change between the 3.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if they've released this or not. They've not said if it's going to change at all. Like, if they take the surveys again and then they decided, oh, well, everybody wanted a 9-year this time.
Yeah.
I don't know. But as far as I know, it's still, 8 years, 95 proof.
As far as I know.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Couldn't tell you.
I'll just go find the 12-year once a year and be happy.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
if you're slightly lucky. What about finding this TTB label from Barrel? The Barrel Whiskey Private Release, which is a Kentucky whiskey finished in Riesling barrel, or a Riesling barrel, actually. It's going to be 18 years old. This is the oldest finished bourbon I think I've ever seen. At 120 proof.
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest, I've never had Riesling.
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, so I don't know.
For that matter.
I really don't know what to expect. Sure, I'll try it. I'm fine with that.
I will say, I haven't talked about this yet, but next week we are actually going to have Trip from Barrel Craft Spirits on the show.
Nice.
Got an interview coming up with him the day that this episode comes out, and we're going to be tasting some of these private releases. So that interview is going to be coming out next week. So you guys stay tuned for that. We'll probably get into a little bit of some of the most recent private releases as well, including the label for this barrel whiskey finished in Riesling.
There's something I'd be really interested in kind of asking him about. And it would just be, how do you do your barrel selection program?
Sure.
Because it seems like those just pop up in the random spots.
Yeah.
Like, I'll see them in a Kroger. The other day I went into Kroger and I was like, they have one of these in the pennies over cost shelf. What on earth? And then I go to other stores and he's like, yeah, I get it in. It's just off the shelves immediately. And it's just, I don't know how they do it. I mean, it seems like the picks are just so... It's not like Knob Creek where it's like, oh, well, some of them are different. Some of them are good. Some of them are better than others. But it seems like they're vastly different. Like, some of them are just completely left field, and some of them are like the best thing you've ever had.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll talk about it off air, but if you can come by and,
Might have to.
You could totally sit in.
Might have to.
Yeah. I'd be all about that. How about this next one, Swan? Speaking of things that we're never going to be able to find anywhere.
This is the only OFC that I've been interested in getting at all.
Because it's your birth year.
It's my birth year. That's it.
So this is the new Buffalo Trace OFC from 95. And that's really about it. 90 proof.
I love that they put what they do on the back. Have you read this yet?
I do. Yeah, I did read that.
Here's 1995. Television audiences tune in to watch Seinfeld, Friends, and ER. So they just put like a whole what was going on this year.
Yeah.
Also, same year that the DVD was invented. Fun fact.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
We started ditching our tapes and going to DVD, even though I'm pretty sure most people didn't have a DVD player.
I was going to say,
2000.
I didn't think that DVDs really became a thing until The Matrix.
No, I think... yeah, it was a while.
I never see these. Never. I think the only time I've seen these bottles twice. At Buffalo Trace, in the vault, and at OBC.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Otherwise, I mean, I'm not hopping into a store and by chance seeing a bottle of OFC.
I've seen one for sale ever, and it was marked up so extremely that it's just not even worth considering.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it was a collector's price. That's all I can say. I mean, they knew what they had. They also had like some old Wild Turkey releases in like the nice boxes, the big 14-year one that they had. Yeah, they had a bunch. But I mean, at that point, you're looking at somebody's museum. You're not in a liquor store. Mm-hmm. So I just didn't even. It's not even a consideration.
Of course, it would be a dream to get to try that, and even just own a bottle of it. But
yeah, I'll set up for the box. The box is cool.
Heck yeah, man. I've become a sucker for packaging recently, just kind of as a display piece. You looked up at my cabinet behind me and the Turkey Decades box that's sitting up there.
Yeah.
I love that box. I really do. So our main topic of conversation for the week, and this has been something that has kind of been at the forefront of our minds recently, especially when we're talking about Bookers, which recently jumped $20 in MSRP.
It did.
From 70 to 90. And this is something that has not been uncommon with Bookers in the past few years. It's definitely not something that has been uncommon in the general product realm for bourbons. But in this case, people are getting up in arms.
They are.
And I think that it's worth our time to step back and kind of look at it and go, what does value mean with bourbon? And why do we get so worked up about it? So when we do things like this, I really like to start just at the base level and go, what does value mean? So Webster,
Great guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah,
I think maybe. Don't quote me on that. Allegedly, he's good. I don't know. It defines value as the monetary worth of something, market price, a fair return or equivalent in goods, services, or money for something exchanged, which I feel like could be definitely appropriated in this instance, or to consider or rate highly, or to estimate or assign the monetary worth of something. So if we look at that, when we talk about bourbon, I think at the base level, value can be very subjective. I think that when you look at it, so let's think in a broader spectrum. You've got a startup distillery. They've got 20 people on hand on their full capacity day. Mm-hmm. They're producing 2 gallons. Well, okay, let's say 2 barrels of bourbon a week, right? Mm-hmm. Per barrel, it winds up costing them about $2,000. So not only are they paying for the grains, they're paying for the electricity, they're paying for the water, all the things that go into actually mashing the whiskey, creating the new make, and then dumping it into the barrel. Well, then they're also paying for the people that are going through these processes, and they're actually creating the product. They're storing it. They're taking inventory. Maybe it's a small distillery that's got a little gift shop out front, and they're trying to, sell people on product that hasn't come out yet, but they do still have some that's been, allocated or sourced or whatever. But then they also are paying taxes, and then they're paying not just taxes on their barrels, but property taxes and, this, that, and the other. So when you look at these small craft distilleries, you're seeing bottles that are priced higher because the value behind it, quote unquote, in that case, may be the fact that they have had more hands-on manual labor to actually create their own product. On the flip side of that, you've got a large distillery with a few thousand employees, right? It costs them just as much to produce 2 barrels of bourbon a day. But they're maybe doing it in smaller steps, or they may be doing it at a larger scale.
Or some of it may be automated and doesn't even need a person.
Exactly. So instead of somebody actually going and pulling the levers, they just punch in the code to the computer and then everything's done for them. So while there is still value in the craft behind it, it's not necessarily the intrinsic value of these people put in the effort to create this product. And they're not trying to stay afloat based on their mass-marketed or mass-produced whiskey.
Yeah.
So in some ways, especially in this instance, value becomes very divisive, not just at the consumer level, but at the producer level. And so I feel like value almost has no meaning until it gets to the consumer.
Yeah, so there's also another thing that you're leaving out of the process, too. Bourbon, before it gets to you, is taxed. Not even just the property, but itself 4 times.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of states, and this is only in Kentucky that this is the case. In other states that have what they call a 3-party system, it's getting taxed in the barrel per year. It's getting taxed at the distillery if they, as soon as they sell it. It's getting taxed by the distributor. And it's getting taxed when it gets to you. So when you're actually buying it from the liquor store. So it's been taxed and marked up a significant amount of times. And, that adds to the cost. And then another thing, there's a whole second part to this. If I get a bottle of bourbon that's $60, it may be, a great value just based on the fact that I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, how much do I enjoy it? If I buy 2 bottles of bourbon, one $60 and the other $60, and one of them is crap, I don't enjoy it, this is getting fed to my garbage disposal, and the other one's the best thing I've ever tasted, well, all of a sudden that value, again, up to the consumer, has become completely subjective.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you saying that it doesn't have any value until it gets to the consumer is perfectly correct. Because, I mean, it doesn't matter if someone took the time and made sure that they made the grains, that they processed it, that they put it through their small staff and took the pride and, all of this to do it, or, Wild Turkey dumped 4,000 barrels today and put out X amount of bottles of whatever. And honestly, Jimmy Russell's only thing he had to do was go to the visitor center because it's Sunday or Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are two wildly different areas. But again, none of it matters until I pick up the bottle, decide the price is worth it. That's it. That's the only thing that's boiling down for value.
So in your mind, and this is something we can go back and forth about too, is value solely on enjoyment, or is it something that you have to kind of check and balance with other factors?
I think it's based on just pure enjoyment and want. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's bottles that I'm sure that both of us have bought with no intention of opening anytime soon, but I wanted it. It was the price I bought it was worth it to me. It was a value that I was willing to take. I mean, I think it's just boiled down to pure enjoyment of the product and how much I want it. That's it. I mean, you've even heard people say it's the $20 extra I really wanted it price, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine.
The finder's fee.
The finder's fee, yeah.
Even if you're paying it back to yourself
Exactly.
or to yourself in general.
I mean, those are just that's where value kind of, I don't know, gets weird. It's pretty much up to the consumer at that point, no matter how much backstory it's had or justification and price it's had up to that point. It's a strange thing. And I mean, that's the thing that sucks too, is like, I feel like Heaven Hill has set a really good standard with a lot of their products as far as just value. I mean, you look, Old Fitzgerald, you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I feel like they are right on the money as far as putting out a specialty product. If you are paying more than $10 per year, it's hard for me to justify the price.
Yeah.
But even then, that's such a, like rigid system. Like take Peerless, for example. I mean, they're putting out a 2-year bourbon, but if you followed that system of $10 per year, that'd be a $20, whiskey. That's not where that needs to be. So even at like setting a very straight price point for each one, it's hard. It gets really strange in the value perspective to the consumer.
And I think that this is where the conversation about how subjective value comes into play. Mm-hmm. So take the secondary market, for example. You can get anything on secondary.
Yeah.
Literally anything. You can get dusty bottles. You can get bottles that your great-grandfather was drinking during World War I. You can find the most recent Master's Keep that came out 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever. You can find, something that you never thought you would ever get on the shelf, whether it's a quarterly release or a yearly release or something like that. It is all out there. But the difference is you wind up getting the quarterly releases at what they are valued at in terms of the public eye. Mm-hmm. You're getting these older bottles based on what the prices have been up until that point. That winds up changing all the time. Wild Turkey is a really good example of that recently too. Up until about a year ago, you could find stuff from the early 90s for $200 at most. Yeah. From Wild Turkey, and towards the end of last year, it jumped up to $375 to $400.
Yeah, you find a cheesy gold foil in good condition with a good fill level, and they're like, give me $450.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all consumer driven, and even then, once you get past the initial consumer, the primary consumer, which is the person who went into the store, got it firsthand, it's the Wild West. Laws, rules have no meaning. It just becomes either, well, here's what I am willing to sell it for, or here's what I'm willing to pay for it. And the crossover between those two is bizarre to me as well.
Yeah.
Because then you have people saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that Weller Antique is up to this price on secondary. And that comes from somebody saying, well, I saw a guy selling it on whatever website for this price, so I figured I would sell it for that price too. And then it just becomes hive mind accepted. And you're going, what are you people doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very strange system, not just on the secondary level, but I think even on primary.
It is, yeah, because like at least at Kentucky, liquor store owners very, very frequently get in a bottle and they're like, well, I'm not going to see this ever again. Let me just triple the price. Why not? Somebody will pay for it, and if they don't, it'll sit on the shelf for a while, and then I'll just take it down to double.
And there seems like there is kind of this subculture of trying to appropriate prices or value on the internet as well. It's not just limited to Facebook or to, shady secondhand websites or third-hand websites or whatever. I mean, this is more commonly visited websites, respected websites in some regards. For example, Forbes. They've got an article called 8 Exceptional Bourbon Values That You Have Probably Never Heard Of. So what do you think the first one is on this list?
I don't know. Knob Creek.
Henry McKenna.
Yeah.
But it's the bottled and bond. I feel like that's something that people have heard of. But this is also... I don't know. Is Henry McKenna still the same value bourbon that it used to be?
I think it's good for its current price point, which is usually hovering around 40, 45, even though we used to get it for 27?
Yeah.
I mean, I still think it's worth it.
I think so too.
The value is there for what I'm getting. I don't know. It's such a strange thing. In all seriousness, I should just say bourbon is worth what you're willing to pay for it, and I should be fine with it. But the second I walk into a store and Weller Antique's $150, I'm going to be upset. And I mean, it's just, there's nothing in my head that's going to be able to say, it's worth what people are willing to pay for it, and then we walk into a store and see an outrageous price and be okay with it. It's just strange.
So where do you find the line drawn between that's fine if you want to pay for it, but I'm not going to pay for it?
I mean, honestly, it's fine if a store owner wants to mark it up, if somebody wants to sell it on secondary for an outrageous price. Again, I'm not going to pay for it. It's still not going to stop me from being a little upset when I'm like, I'd really like another bottle of Weller Antique, finally finding one and it being $50 more than I'm willing to pay. I don't know. It's strange. I think the only thing I get upset with is seeing stores that have notoriously been, we're not going to mark it up. We're going to get it in. It's going to be first come, first serve. We're going to do our best to make sure everyone gets stuff fairly. Going to place a limit on how many you can get. And then you turn around and get something that's marked up, and you're like, well, what happened? Where was that? Like, we're going to give it out to, we're going to be fair with it. Where'd that mentality go? There's just a little bit of greed that comes with it. I mean, and not to knock them, we actually have 2 things today we're going to be reviewing from the same store, but we went to Total Wine for the first release. I ended up getting a bottle, went in, it was like right at MSRP, like maybe $5 more, and I was super happy with it. Went the year later, ended up winning again at this lottery, and it was $40 over MSRP. I mean, I watched Stag Senior, like the big BTAC release, go
Daddy
from
Stag.
$99.99, which is roughly where it should be, to $139.99. It's like, well, what happened? That's a little upsetting. But again, it's a private business. They can do what they want, and if it's worth people waiting in line, they're going to pay for it. It's a value as long as they see it as a value, I guess.
Well, let's take a small break, I guess, from the conversation. Go ahead and get these poured up so that we can start to do this kind of comparison and talk more about what the idea behind value might be in this specific instance. So what we have is 2 single barrel picks from Total Wine here in Lexington. One is a Knob Creek 15-year pick, or almost 15 years if I'm...
Yeah, it was, barrel date was 9/21/2005. Barrel selected was 3/25/20.
Okay. So almost 15 years.
Yeah.
But the other one is an MB Roland bourbon as well. It is 111.8 proof. And if I am correct, non-age stated?
Yeah, so I did some research. It seems like a lot of them are right at that 2-year mark.
So one of the reasons that we chose this option too was because these were the exact same price.
Yeah, they were within like $2 of each other.
Yeah. So basically about $55 a piece. So the question here was not just what is the better value, but also is the value itself inherent in these products? I am interested. I am excited to do this. I'm really looking forward to what this is going to turn into.
Yeah, I think this is really going to pinpoint what we've been talking about, that, you know, it's going to come down to, is this product worth it to me at this price? Which is great, because it's going to come down to the consumer in this case, instead of just, well, they did have the X amount of workers, they did have X amount of this. So it's going to be interesting.
So I want to touch on this from the LA Whiskey Society at lawhiskeysociety.com. They have a whole page about determining value of vintage liquor. And their second bullet point in Article 1 is, how is the value of rare whiskey determined? So this is coming right from their page. It says, we look for comps of recent sales of the same or comparable bottles and balance that against what a seller actually profits in those scenarios. This involves auction results, retail sales, private sales, the current state of the market, private collectors' opinions, each bottle's individual condition, and other factors. Sellers should understand that with any collectible, value can be different than price. At retail, the price a dealer is asking might be $1,000. But at auctions, collectors might only be paying $600. From that $600, the seller might go home with less than $400 after deducting fees and expenses. So value can sometimes mean what an owner can actually sell a collectible for, and price is what an auction result might be, or what a dealer/retailer might ask. Recognize that in the U.S., it's often hard for sellers to net the full price. Auction sellers have large commissions to pay, and private collectors negotiate with this knowledge. Also keep in mind that the U.S. secondary whiskey market is small and constantly fluctuating, so values are hard to say with certainty. Any estimate is just an educated guess.
That was a lot of words to say. It's just going to change, and there's not much you can do about it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's...
Wow. It's people saying, we don't know, you don't know, so we're just going to take our best guess, and if it's wrong, sorry about you.
Yeah, I mean, the first part of that kind of just led to... It's just a lot of averages. You just look like, oh, well, Weller, Special Reserve is going for 50 to 70, so I'm going to charge 60, and that's probably a fair price/value. I don't know. I mean, that's not a bad way to go about it.
It's not, but it's also potentially very frustrating. I mean, there is definitely that chance for things to blow up in your face.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are really, truly looking at what you are gaining from it, what others are gaining from it, I mean, there's a chance that things just aren't going to work out in your favor. So, it goes back to what I was saying. Value is not determined until it actually reaches the consumer themselves for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it's all nebulous. And so, where I think everybody's getting tripped up about this is the issue with bookers. It's consistently been 6 to 7 year old batches.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it has been at barrel strength, but it's steadily been climbing in price. It started at about $50, $55. It got hiked up to 70, and now we're looking at an MSRP of 90.
Yeah. No, it's hard. I think people are also looking at the declining age and really pointing that out as a factor as to why it shouldn't have gone up in price. But that being said, Booker's had an off year last year. Despite that, they put out just solid product after solid product. It's hard to argue that it's not worth, at least some sort of a price up from $55. I mean, I don't know. I'm willing, personally, I think to me, it's like a $75 bourbon. So if I find it on sale, I'm not upset with a $75 valuation personally. But there's also a lot of people, like when I first started drinking, I was like, this is too peppery. It's nothing but spice. I can't handle it. It's not for me. So when I splurged and spent, at the time, $65, it was not a value for me.
I remember that first bottle you got too, and you were like choking it down trying to finish it.
Yeah, it's not it.
Now we would go back and actually analyze it and have some thoughts.
Blue Knights batch.
Yeah, that's
2017 right. 2017-02. It's the first one I had.
Seems like forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also too, what people get concerned with, what they start talking about, is the fact that this is the same distillery, the same company that puts out a 9-year single barrel at 120 proof for half the price of a batch of Booker's.
True.
And, a third of the 30% more age.
Yeah.
50% more age? I don't know. I'm not good with numbers.
I like that they're staying true to their platform. They've had 4 large performers in their small batch collection for a long time now, and they're sticking with it. Instead of doing what some distilleries are doing, Buffalo Trace, where you put out brand new products that are really not that much different from your original ones, saying, oh, it's new, and then you can set the price point higher and get something else. I mean, their Weller line has just been putting out product after product, and you're like, how different is a single barrel at 90 whatever proof compared to the regular? It's just, I don't know. I'm glad that they're staying true to it. I think their products are personally worth it, one of which we're about to try right now.
Well, I actually wanted us to start with the MB Roland.
Oh, okay. Let's do that.
So I'm sorry that
We'll be trying in a minute.
But I wanted to give the younger product with less proof a chance to express itself without actually being dominated by a product that is, almost 8 times its age.
Yeah.
6 times its age. And I don't think that's entirely fair. So in this case, again, it's 111 proof, around 2 years old. It says it's Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, so
at least 2.
Better be 2 years old.
Yeah.
It's very, peanut and corn heavy on the nose.
It is, but it also is giving me like a s'mores note.
Oh, yeah. I can totally see that. Is it weird that I'm feeling tomatoes on this one?
Is that a throwback to the original listeners?
Again, the lost tasting segment from way back when, but it's a very earthy flavor or nosing note.
Yeah.
That I think is directly related to tomatoes.
Now they tout being uncut and unfiltered. So this is
just like what we used to say the podcast was.
Yeah. Still and barrel proof. So it's 111.8. Number 4 char, 78% white corn, 17% rye, 5% malt. I don't know. I'm interested.
Woo. It is sweet.
It is very sweet.
It is corn forward. I think that the youth is showing through. I kind of like the finish a bit, though.
I do kind of like the finish.
It starts turning into like a Reese's peanut butter cup.
I'll be honest. I am not disappointed in this for a 2-year bourbon.
I'm not either.
No.
Especially at cast strength.
At cast strength, yes. This still reminds me, though, of a little bit of the Dickel Bought in a Bond.
I don't know if I'm quite getting that, but I can see where you're coming from.
Just the corniness.
Yeah.
Just the corniness.
I get that. I totally understand that.
But even then, the one I had was a 13-year.
Yeah.
They're...
So that's the other thing. And that's what we're getting at with this too. What does age contribute to value? And it goes back to the analogy of, or the allegory, whatever, of the small craft distillery.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're putting out a 6-month-old bourbon, or 8, or 14, or whatever, but it's at cask strength. They're not necessarily selling it at a loss, but they're providing something to the consumer that really isn't available anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've also got, a cask strength product from a larger producer at maybe the same price, maybe a little bit lower.
True.
So you start at some point, I feel like, scratching your head and going, what's the real value here?
Yeah. I think it's strange too. I was just thinking about this. We, with the show, we always have like a rating system for our main reviews that we do.
Yeah.
Our rating system is really not that bad as far as determining value, because the price portion on our rating system is just an absolute swing vote half the time on whether or not this is a pickup, or not. And I think that's good because you're taking into consideration nothing but taste, and then just, is the price worth it?
In this case, though, I don't know if this is a pickup for me.
This is not a pick. Well, it was a pickup for me, but I don't know if this is another go back and try it.
Yeah.
They do have a different one, and forgive me, it could be the incorrect, but it's like a dark char or something that they have, like a deeper char. I know what you're talking about. In trying that. I've seen some people that enjoy that. I think a rye from them would be interesting as well if they've got one.
They do.
I might be more interested in that because rye tends to, just show a little more with less age.
Yeah. I've not tried the rye either. I think, honestly, this is only the second or third time that I've tried an MB Rollin bourbon.
Yeah. I will say the nose is probably my favorite part of it.
Yeah. I think it's just... It's so difficult to really nail down what value means in bourbon. And I'm not trying to reach this conclusion and, waste everybody's time with a 30-minute conversation about value, but there are so many nebulous characteristics of what value in bourbon is that it almost becomes an individual's response or understanding or their own take on what value means to them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, value is very much established in terms of price by the producer.
Can I throw another variable in there just to give you even more headache?
Yeah.
Comparison.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we do this so much on the show. I want to be that person that should just be, do I like the taste? Yes. Is that worth blank amount of dollars to me? Yes or no. That should be as simple as value is. But I catch myself, especially when Henry McKenna 10 was around, I'd be like, we have a 10-year bourbon, it's $150, and I'm like, Henry McKenna 10's $30.
Yeah.
I throw that comparison out so fast. I'm quick to do that. I point out value as a sense of like, well, this bourbon is better than this bourbon, and it's less price.
Well, it's good but conundrum.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I've really tried to wean myself off of. Mm-hmm. And this week, finally, I've got an ISO session that I recorded a couple weeks ago with Haley from Wilderness Trail. And we talked about the fact that they have a 6-year-old wheated bourbon out right now. And she was talking about how we kept saying, you know, it's good at 4 years, but, and then there were those people like us who said, but if it's this good at 4 years, why do we have to change it? Why do we have to do something that's older? I mean, shouldn't this be where things kind of hover with consistency?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I'm not interested in finding out what the value of that is, what the quality of that is at an older age. But overall, I mean, I feel like I'm at the point where I don't keep going, it's good, but.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that quite a bit. I mean, I feel like that's part of so there's two sides to it. You get to play the devil's advocate card. It's like, it sucks as a consumer, like, or I mean, as a person putting stuff out, where you're just like, I've really gone to great lengths to put out this 6-year. I really pressed myself. I made sure that I was careful to put back stock to actually age it to 6 years. I'm really proud of my product. In Wilderness Trails case, they put it in a nice box. They made a big deal about it on their email chain about making sure you sign up for it and making it an event, even during COVID. And people got it, and I'm sure there was plenty of people that are like, man, this is even better at 6 years. Wonder what it's like at 8.
Well, of course.
And as a person that puts stuff out, you're probably just like, just be happy with the 6-year, man. Do you know how much work this was for us? And I know that's frustrating, but also, I think it's also kind of a nice thing for them as well, because it's like, well, they're so excited about our 6-year, they want more from us.
Yeah.
It's completely in how you interpret it. I know I'm one of those people that's like, oh, this is really good at 2 years. This MB rolling stuff. I wonder what it's like at 4. That was literally about to come out of my mouth.
Yeah.
It's hard. You don't want to be that it's good but person, but I do want distilleries to kind of take it more as I'm excited about your product. I want to see it progress.
Yeah. And we definitely, I think, at one point or another, we're guilty about that when we were talking about Hotel Tango.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. Like, we definitely brought it up, and they even pointed it out in one of the live streams. They're just like, it was pretty good for a 2-year bourbon.
No. What they said was they couldn't believe how good that a 2-year-old bourbon could taste that good.
Yeah. I don't want you to take that in a negative light, even though that, I mean, we just are excited about your product. And
what we're saying is, in our experience, 2-year-old bourbons don't have that quality. They are not as high value as that one is.
Yeah.
I would be pressed to find a 2-year-old bourbon at that quality.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere.
Yeah, them and Peerless have really cornered the game.
Absolutely.
On a younger bourbon.
We should probably try this Knob Creek too, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, yes, please. So this is the opposite end of the spectrum. It's a well-known, best value bourbon, and I mean, I'm excited. Ooh, this is real Rick House and peanutty.
Dark berries.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely nutty.
Definitely nutty.
That is just classic through and through Jim Beam Knob Creek.
Oh, that is good. That is the most lasting finish I've had on a Knob Creek in a while.
Oh my gosh. Makes you want to cozy up in front of a fireplace.
That is a winter bourbon.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of the... I haven't had this in forever. It's been so long since I finished this bottle, but it was called the Finale Bourbon. Mm-hmm. It was a Knob Creek pick from Ernie's here in town.
Oh, yeah.
And the way they advertised it was, this is the last bourbon you're going to want to drink for the night.
Mm-hmm.
This is totally in that ballpark. I mean, if you... And I kind of do the same thing. I start lower proof and work my way up if I want to have a couple of drinks. I don't want to start out with a Russell's Reserve or something. I want to, ease my way in with a Buffalo Trace and, slowly go up. Elijah Craig, 101, then, this, that, and the other. this is the culmination of like the end of your nightly drinking.
Oh yeah, this is the good night pour.
Mm-hmm.
This is the. It's good, man. That is so good. I think you're seeing like way opposite ends of the spectrum for the same price point. I think you're seeing a lot of what you mentioned earlier, where it's like they've got a lot of overhead, they've got a lot of things to cover. They're putting out what they believe is the best product they can currently put out, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just personally, I don't feel like it's commanding that price that they have it at.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that eventually I won't want this for something, but 9 times out of 10, I'm going to have this Knob Creek pick for my last drink of the night over the MB Roland.
I agree.
Yeah, and the value is leaning towards Knob Creek in this case.
And also in this case, I think that we have to talk about what our palate leans towards.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you lean towards a darker flavor profile, something that has less edges to it than something that's slightly more unrefined because it is younger, you know, you are going to lean more towards the Knob Creek. So that's not to say that you don't have people who like something with a little bit more punch, a little bit more kick that this MB Roland might be offering. Mm-hmm. And I know people who like the MB Roland as well. I'm not discrediting their taste by any means.
No, we didn't put them in a fair fight. We're just showing opposite ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. And I don't even know if I could put this up against the 2-year Hotel Tango.
No.
I don't think that's even fair.
No.
to be quite honest. But it totally, I think, gets down to what do you value the most in your product. And it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning. The consumer determines the value of your product. And yes, you do want to put some of your own introspection into it in terms of how you think it should be priced and what you think the market should be accepting it at. But at the same time, you've got to be self-aware. You've got to be cognizant of what it is you're putting out into the world.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not trying to fizzle out on this conversation by any means. I want to know what other people think about what value means in bourbon as well. You can send us an email to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can drop us a line on social media at MyBourbonPod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also leave us a barrel ring at 859-428-8253 if you would like to do it that way as well. We do have a barrel ring actually coming up here in a minute. But for the most part, man, it is hard to pin it down. It is really difficult to pinpoint what it means for value in bourbon. But in this case, to me, it's subjective. It's based on your experience, and it's based on what you're willing to pay.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's people that have even devised systems like the buy bar pass thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just...
And the guys at the podcast, they definitely have, I feel like, and I say minimalist, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It's very straightforward.
They simplified what we just had of like a 30-minute conversation on into 3 words. I mean, I feel like Kevin Malone from The Office, where he's like, "Why say many words when few words?" I mean, it's just that's perfect.
I've got to. Nobody steal this. Nobody steal this. I'm going to post it the day this comes out. I want to do a meme of Kevin says, "Why drink many bourbon when few bourbon do trick?"
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's perfect. I think
we're a meme podcast now, apparently.
Yes. We've not said it slaps in a few episodes. We're making progress.
Yeah, I'm proud of us for that one. I'm also proud of the fact that I feel like I just want to keep drinking this Knob Creek.
You are welcome to pour you a couple of 2-ounce samples of that for later on.
It's gonna have to happen. Dang it, that's the best Knob Creek pick I've had from Total Wine too.
Yeah, and it's one of the new labels. It's brand new.
I know.
They only had 2 bottles.
I know. What's weird about this too is, like, they consistently have 9-year-old picks.
They have a lot of 9-year-old picks. They had like 4 today. And then they had 2 of these on the shelf spot where the Knob Creek's supposed to sit. And I was like, cool. That's a new label. Doesn't look like the rest of them. Grab that.
That's mine.
Yeah.
That's for me. Hey, as I was saying, we do have a barrel rings for this week. You can send us a voicemail at 859-428-8253. We will listen to your barrel rings voicemail. Swan's doing the standard of the show by blending the two pours together. I'm gonna do the same.
You got to,
Swan.
man.
I gotta know.
I'll give you a refill of the Knob Creek if it didn't work out.
I'll be okay with that. What'd it do? What'd it do, Swan?
Nothing. There's nothing there now.
It's very green.
Just taste. It just
like
smells like graham cracker.
Yeah. That's not bad. It's kind of Teddy Grahams.
Yes.
It's totally Teddy Grahams on the nose.
Who's mad at Teddy Grahams?
As I was saying, we do have a barrel rings for this week's episode. This one comes from, I believe, Fred Gilbert. It's a bit of a long one. You guys bear with us. I'm excited for this. So let's see what Fred had to say.
Hey there, Pear Bear, Swan, and Kurt. You know, Kurt, I felt like you needed to be included in the pet name, animal name thing, and I tried, man. I don't know. The only thing that really came to mind as far as rhymes went was Kurdish, and I think the last thing those people need is to be grouped in with animals. So I did some looking around, and I don't really think it's gonna stick. The only thing, the best rhyme I could come up with was Turdus. Turdus. That is apparently thrush. That's a bird. So, yeah, like I said, I don't think that one's going to stick. Maybe you guys can come up with something better, but I feel like Kurt really need to have, we've got animal names for everybody. But Kurt, anyhow, the reason I originally wanted to call was because you guys were talking about Breckenridge on the last episode. You had a sample of their high proof blend. And there was a comment that I think came from the person who sent the sample specifying that it is actually all bourbon. I hate to be that guy, but it actually is not, unfortunately. So this, to make sure that, you can include this in the episode with confidence and not have to worry about any repercussions. This is straight from the horse's mouth. I sat down and did a tasting with one of Breckenridge's ambassadors, going through more or less their whole range of products, and I noticed the peculiar wording of bourbon whiskey a blend on their bottles, and I inquired about it, and she told me straight up that they are cutting their whiskeys with grain-neutral spirits. And if memory serves, they are trucking it in from Iowa, I believe. So, yeah, that is the regular bourbon, the high-proof blend, even the reserve blends that they're doing for stores, I believe, so on and so forth. I think all of the regular, like, bourbons and whiskeys and so on are including the grain-neutral spirits. Yeah. And...
Oh, and he got cut off there at the end.
Man.
It was a 3-minute voicemail, so I'm not entirely surprised. But Fred, thank you so much for calling into the show for Barrel Rings. So we were definitely wrong then. It's not a...
Still not bad for the pennies over cost shelf.
I really didn't mind it that much.
I'll take it.
I really was pretty surprised with how that product turned out.
I remember Chad getting a bottle of it from some sort of like competition or like New Orleans Bourbon Festival, I think it was. And it was like a specific to the festival pick. It was actually pretty good. It was really good.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with Breckenridge.
Not mad at all. You
No,
cut
I'm
it
not.
with whatever you want to, as long as it tastes good.
I'm also not mad about this blend that we did either.
No, it's not bad at all.
I think the Knob Creek is like
Oh, it's overpowering.
way overpowered it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of taken it down to what I think is more accessible with Knob Creek picks. I think that it's kind of tamed those more full-bodied notes, which is not a bad thing, but it's also, people don't always want things to smack them in the face and call them Sally.
No.
But
Tastes like caramel corn now.
yeah,
I'm
it definitely
not mad
does.
at that.
It definitely does. I really don't mind it.
No.
I like it.
Do I still want more Knob Creek by itself?
Absolutely.
Yes.
We might have to do that on the post game last call.
I'm here
Chats.
for it. I got a ride tonight. We can go.
I'll pull something out of the cabinet too.
Sweet.
We'll find out what that is. But before we do that, we've got tips and bits, man.
Tips and bits. Yes, we do.
Oh, what tips and/or bits do you have for this week?
Let's see. I've not been doing much, honestly. I watched. I don't do anything, Perry. I just go to the pond, hang out, chase some children around. It's fine.
You're becoming more of a goose than a swan, Swan.
Yeah. No, I've been watching. It's called The Business of Drugs. It's on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's like a 6-part series where they break down like the full economic, system behind drugs. Like they go down as far as like it's crazy. They actually like interview drug dealers and people in the drug trade. So at one point they like go to Mexico. They talk to some dude that's got his voice changed, a mask on, and he's just making heroin, man.
Oh
He's
my
just
gosh.
going for it. And they just talk to him super casually, and
Sure.
they break down prescription drugs, marijuana, all sorts of different things, and it's super interesting just to learn that there's a legitimate business side to all of this stuff, and how it's just hard to stop. I mean, I guess if you're not getting regulated by the SEC and all this other stuff, you're just like, we'll just off a few workers. Don't really need this guy anymore. See ya. But I don't know. It's worth watching, I think. It's just crazy the span that they go to keep it running.
Yeah. I've really been in the mood, and I've never been this way before, to watch a documentary.
Yeah.
And not like a fun, kind of like bubbly deal
you
where
want
it's
the
almost like
gritty stuff.
not like a reality series documentary kind of deal. Like I would really have been wanting to watch documentary recently, so that's something that I might have to get into. It's been a long time since I've watched a good documentary series. I think the last one that I really remember, and I've talked about it on the show before, was Unplanned America.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 Australian guys who just had no plan going into an American trip, and it turned into like 3 seasons, I think, and they were going through some of the lesser known areas or lesser known destinations in the country, and just being very candid with the people there or those who, owned spaces or whatever. I love Unplanned America, so
There's nothing wrong with that.
that's kind of a throwback tips or bits, but I'll recommend. I think I'm not entirely sold on it yet, but it's so I'm totally just not sure about it yet. As y'all know, I've been playing my Switch a lot more, but the newest Paper Mario, the Origami King, I just don't know about it yet. Like, I can't make up my mind whether or not I like it. Like, there's parts of the story that are entertaining, but the combat system sucks. Like, it's not a good RPG fighting game by any means. And
right.
the older ones were so good. They were so much fun, and like they had something really unique to them, and you felt like there was some evolving strategy, but this is all like the exact same thing over and over again.
Nintendo's thing has always been reviving old games and changing them slightly.
Yeah.
Or just reviving old games entirely. So, the one game that I'm calling you out, Nintendo, I want it. Mario Sunshine. Oh, man. Could you imagine if they did Mario Sunshine on the Switch?
I would love a sequel or a remake of Mario Sunshine.
Just a complete remake. It doesn't even have to be a remake. Just port the thing. You can leave the graphics as they are.
Absolutely.
I'd have a great time.
That's been my biggest issue, I think, with the Switch so far, is that they don't have a good virtual console. Mm-hmm. They've got the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, and the SNES. But we've had so many consoles that have had those. I mean, the Switch is more than powerful enough to have GameCube ports or N64 ports. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think my all-time favorite game is Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
Oh, solid. Very solid.
And I would love to be able to play that on the Switch. Mm-hmm. But I can't. They don't have a good emulator for it. And yeah, you can play it on the 3DS, but even still, I mean, it would just be nice to like have it right there on your Switch. I don't want to have to keep switching consoles all the time. Also, like a GameCube or a Game Boy port would be great. A Game Boy emulator. What are they doing?
I don't know. Like, Nintendo's done this with every single console. They realize it's going to have about a 3 to 4 year lifespan, maybe 5 years if they're at best, because they like to put out a lot more consoles than Xbox and PlayStation. And then they make you buy the same game on every single console because you're like, nostalgia. And then you buy it on the next one and the next one.
How many times have we bought Super Mario Bros?
Plenty of times.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not to say that it's not a classic and I don't enjoy playing it all the time.
No. The mentality every time it comes to a new system is just like, Nintendo, why'd you do this to me? And you're like, I already bought it. I'm already playing it. I'm playing it right now. Like, you suck it up and you buy it every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get over it very quickly.
Yeah, you're just like, I don't really want to play that. And then you catch yourself like, nothing's on Netflix, nothing's on Hulu. This subscription I didn't pay for this month. And then you're just like, I could just go buy Mario again.
But I will say, I do love the replayability of it. I love the nostalgia.
Oh yeah.
And there's something about the not having to think about it. You can just kind of chuck it on and, you just want something to round out the night and helps you go to sleep, I guess.
Yeah. Fall back into some monotony.
Speaking of monotony, but I don't have a segue for that. No, this is the first episode, or the end of the first episode that we have been able to record in person since the pandemic hit, and I am so thankful not only for you guys listening, but for Swan being able to come back over and hang out for a little bit. And it feels like things are starting to get back to normal now.
Yeah.
At least for us in this space. But we thank you all so much for listening to the show, not only this week, but every week. And we would love for you to follow up with us on social media. Swan, where can people do that for you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram at My Bourbon Finder.
That's it?
That's it. I don't have much going on, guys.
I am at PeteRitter1492 on all social media channels. You can also follow the show at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also leave us a 5-star rating or review on the iTunes podcast app, and we will actually read it out for you here on air. And not only that, but it is a great way for the show to actually reach new listeners. Shows up in the search function on the podcast app, or any podcast app that you listen to, regardless of whether or not it's on Apple. And we do have a review this week for us to read out. This comes from LCA Eagles 70. The title is The Perfect Show for Bourbon Lovers. 5 stars. Whether you have been a longtime bourbon connoisseur or are new to the game, the crew at This Is My Bourbon podcast will deepen your passion for our drink of choice and point you in the direction of some delicious selections. Cheers, y'all. Thank you so much, LCA Eagles 70, for reaching out and leaving us a nice little review here on the podcast app. We really appreciate it. You can also reach us at thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com, where you can leave questions, comments, whatever you may like to do. You can leave us a voicemail at 859-428-8253 for our Barrel Ring segment, which we just had a great voicemail that unfortunately got cut off at the very end because Fred went off on a tangent. But that's okay. That's okay. We're still happy to hear from anybody who wants to call into the show. And I'll throw this out here, too. Anybody who would like to respond, if you feel like you have a good, underrated value bourbon, or maybe your favorite value bourbon, let us know. Drop us a line, 859-428-8253, and we'll listen to it on the show, talk about it, and that would be really nice. You can find all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. And you can also become a part of our Facebook group at facebook.com. You just search for This Is My Bourbon Group. It is open to the public. You just have to answer a few questions, and we will make sure that you get in there and become a part of our little community, which is a lot of fun. That's where we ask all of our questions for the pregame chats, where we get warmed up for each episode. And then last but not least, you can find all of our bonus content, I guess, and become a patron of the show at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. You can keep the lights on here in the studio garage studio. I don't know.
Gastudio.
The Gudio. I don't know. I hate that.
I'm not a big fan. Nope.
For $5 a month, you get bonus episodes and content. At $10 a month, you get to be a part of it's like a live stream thing, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. You can check out all the tiers and everything at patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. Thank you all so much for being patrons of the show every single month. Swan, we should probably thank a patron of the show, too. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think I did the last 2 weeks. What do you got?
Well, I think that we should shout out to Kyle Anderson over on patreon.com. Kyle, thank you so much, as always, for being a patron of the show. It means a lot to us. You can get a small little shout out like that, of course, if you do become a patron of the show, and you can get all of our bonus content. We've got bonus episodes going back into basically 2017, 2018. Got a couple that are going to be coming out here very soon as well, if you'd like to go and check all of that out. And we appreciate everybody, as always, for supporting the show. I think I've said that enough times, which means it's time for us to wrap up the show. Next week, we've got Trip from Barrel Craft Spirits. And those of you on Patreon, you also have the finally first edition of the Last Call post-game chats, rather, which you can check out the day after the main episode. Thank you all so much for listening to the show every week, as you always do. We'll see you next week, but until then, I'm Perry.
And I'm Swan.
And this is My Bourbon Podcast.